Welcome to the Studio Talk podcast. I'm Xiomara Sosa, your co-host. Every week, we speak to our community members to teach them about mental health through education and awareness, and our hope is to inspire them through social change advocacy. We also interview community members and other mental health professionals, clinicians, healers, students, and wellness professionals. Our style is storytelling. Everyone has a mental health story to tell. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute for seeking help from a licensed mental health professional and is not a substitute for psychological diagnosis or treatment. It's purely educational and purely social change advocacy. If you find yourself in any sort of mental health emergency or distress, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room. Welcome everyone to the X podcast, Real Conversations about Mental Health. This is episode number 42, and today's topic is disaster mental health. I am your host, Xiomara Sosa, the creator and executive producer of this podcast. Our mission is to teach our community listeners about mental health through education and to really inspire them through social change advocacy. As a social scientist and social change advocate, I strive to have real conversations about all things related to mental health here on this podcast. Right, J-Rock?
That's right.
I am a clinical mental health counselor, a national board certified counselor, a licensed professional counselor, and a clinical supervisor in South Carolina. As a multicultural, holistic, and integrative mental health therapist, I specialize in women's mental health. However, my mental health specialties are anxiety disorders, depressive disorders, gender dysphoria, and trauma and stressor-related disorders, which includes PTSD, CPTSD, and all of those things. I own and am a clinical director of Somerville Women's Mental Health Services, which is my private practice here in the Low Country of South Carolina in the USA. And I'm also the founder and executive director of my nonprofit organization, the X Studio, a mental health cooperative. It's a place for provisionally licensed, nearly fully licensed, and independent licensed mental health clinicians to start or to level up their journey as mental health clinicians. So today I am joined by my co-host, J-Rock. Lisa is off, I don't know, what should I say, galloping around the country and actually the world because she's on her way to Tokyo from somewhere else.
There you go.
We will see her in February. And then Kristen I've talked to, and she's going to come do a special series with me soon with a police officer who runs a nonprofit on cumulative PTSD for police officers. So we're going to be setting that up soon. So J-Rock is going to introduce himself, and then we're going to start talking about disaster mental health.
All right. Well, yes, I am J-Rock, co-host here and technical advisor. I've been doing radio, big in communication, been doing radio for almost 20 years now. So love all things audio and, just the audio files and the quirks about that. But also a big advocate on self-development and being on this podcast is all about that. So I'm all about growth and just becoming better day by day. And and also learning so many new things, new terminology, things I had to unlearn. And just always happy to expand my palettes in this world. So yeah,
that's really great. And then usually when any of the other guys are here and everything, we always say at the end of the of our recording, like, this is just like a support group for you guys.
Basically,
come and do your work for free. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to start off. So the reason we're doing disaster mental health is because I thought about doing this when the hurricane went over to Ashville and did all the damage that it did over there, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And then I decided to do something else, talk about something else. And then obviously with the wildfires going on in California and everything around that, I just decided to kind of like, just do it. We got to do it.
Got to, yeah.
So we're going to talk about that a little bit. So a little bit about me and disaster mental health. That actually is something that before I got my full license here in South Carolina, when I landed here in 2011, I did a lot of volunteer work for the Red Cross, mostly for veterans work and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that I got very trained on and loved to do was disaster mental health, because it is sort of like a kind of specialty that you do, but it's not really something that is meant for you to be doing all the time, because we're not supposed to have disasters all the time.
Yeah, right.
So back then it was just so that the Red Cross can call you when something happened, when, Hurricane Katrina or something like that happened, but mostly for you to be available for me, they used to call me a lot if there were fires in houses in areas where there were language barriers or there were other issues like that they needed somebody to come in and help with that also knew how to do disaster mental health. And so that's what I kind of started doing here. And then when the Mother Emanuel AME Church shooting happened,
Yeah.
they called me to go and do some disaster mental health for some of the people there. And that was, that's always like we talked about last week. It's really hard to do, but it's also very rewarding to do that kind of work with people who are, and you really do need the training to do it, because otherwise you end up with the vicarious trauma and all that kind of stuff and hurting them without realizing you're hurting them. So it's very good. So anyway, and then obviously, as I've mentioned before, my personal disaster, which was my experience as a 9/11 survivor at the Pentagon, and then experiencing Hurricane Katrina when I was living in Miami, and then it went through and did all. We all know that. So all of that is sort of like a big part of my past. I don't do disaster mental health really anymore unless there's a real need and they need me. But I kind of put that behind, because that's, first of all, when you experience it, it kind of changes the way that you feel about doing that kind of work, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, I don't have it, to give. But also, you move on to other areas of work in mental health, and that becomes something that you're proud of having done before, but you really have to be in it. Like you really have to be, like, I feel like you really, because otherwise it can take a toll on you. And we all know everything I've been going through, with taking care of my parents and everything else that I've done, that is just not something I had in me. But I really do encourage anyone, and you don't have to be a mental health person necessarily to assist with the mental health. We had other people who got basic training that were there with us to do the one-on-one mental health when we got, in the field, and the disaster victims were there, and then you just kind of had your little crew with you, and everybody had a role. Like I always had a supervisor that supervised me, and then I did what I needed to do. And but there are things that only you can do as a disaster mental health person.
Okay.
But there are things that other people can do that you get trained on by the Red Cross. So you can always contact the Red Cross, and they will tell you. They always want people. They always want people and need people, and they will deploy you. Like if there's something that went on in Ashville, they will deploy you out there if you want to go.
Okay.
And so that's just, for the people that's something to think about. All right. So right now, just to put some perspective on it, right now what we're experiencing is the LA wildfires, which has been going on. How many weeks, J-Rock?
Ooh, man, it's been,
two?
I was close to 2. Yeah, it's been, and it's been bad too. But close to 2 weeks, I would think.
Yeah. And by the time you guys hear this podcast, it'll be a week or two more. So they've got a lot of it contained, a lot of it isn't, and then it's just really big. I'm not going to necessarily get into what's going on there specifically, because that's very complicated. But I do have a personal thing that I want to say about it before we move on to what we should be talking about. First, I want to send my support and love, and so does J-Rock, to everyone dealing with the Los Angeles, California wildfire. I don't care if you are the richest person on that going through this, or you're the poorest person going through that. If you're a first responder, if you're a leader, I don't care if you're a church person and you are going through this. Nobody knows what this is like unless they are going through it. And I'm telling you that nobody knows, because unless you're there experiencing it, it doesn't matter what you're seeing online, what you're seeing on TV, what people are saying. It's real easy to talk about it. It's a whole nother reality when you're in the middle of a disaster like that, okay? Yep. So anybody, pets, animal, anybody out there, our hearts go out to you. I just want to say, we see you. We see you. We know that you're dealing with a lot. And, first responders are the heroes out there right now, the helpers, I also want to say publicly that as a disaster survivor, as an Air Force and Army veteran, and as a professional helper, and as someone whose family members are many, my family's filled with the first responder community, the military community, that I really am appalled and angry at all the nonsense going on online, starting with the incoming president-elect and all the horrific things that they said about the first responders, about the leadership out there, about the people going through it, just all of that ugly political nonsense. I just want to be brave enough to say that it fucking pisses me off. And anybody that's fanning the flames of that kind of talk during a disaster, I don't care who's on fire. You're doing that. There's a special place in fucking hell for you for that. So I am not okay with that. And anybody that feels some kind of way about it, you're not alone. It's not normal. Like, let's not normalize that. Okay. That's not normal. So moving on with that, but it doesn't surprise me, because I know with the same administration, 4 or 5 years back when Hurricane Maria came and destroyed my beautiful Puerto Rico, and the bullshit that I know happened because my people are there, so I know what was going on there with him and with everything. It really, it's just insult to injury. And then how COVID unraveled in the end and all that damage. So to me, I feel like, so this is just indicative of where we're going to be for the next 4 years. And I'm not here for that. I'm really not here for that. So I'm just putting a voice to the people that can't say that out loud, and that you're not crazy, and this has nothing to do with political right, left, conservative. But this is just being a normal human person. Okay. That is just unacceptable during a disaster. So anyway, we're hoping that everything's getting better. And from what I understand, leadership has really stepped up. The first responders community has really stepped up. They're doing the best that they can under the situation. And we're just hoping that everybody's going to get through this the best way that they can and rebuild like they do. And, it's even though some people are behaving in a reprehensible way about it, just look to the helpers. Look to the helpers. Those are the people that keep you grounded, that give you hope, and that are going to do the thing that needs to happen.
Right.
Okay, that's my little tangent. Okay, you're right.
You gotta let it out. No, for sure.
So now I'm gonna go straight into giving you some tips for managing your distress related to the actual wildfires, and then we'll talk about disaster mental health. So even if you are not directly affected by the wildfires in Los Angeles, you may actually experience a sense of distress or vulnerability by living close or even by watching the destruction unfold, right? Under reports, like that's a lot. It's unprecedented. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
So,
no, for sure.
It's give yourself some grace. That's really not, and it makes it real. If it happens there, if it happened in Ashville, it can happen to us. Some kind of disaster can happen to us. So so just exercise some grace.
That's right.
So even if you're not directly affected by them, you're going to probably experience a sense of distress or vulnerability by living, like I said, and watching it. This can be especially true if you have family or friends who have been impacted by the current disaster or another disaster, like mine, for example. It hits me different. It hits me really different, know? And you do not yet know about their safety and well-being. That's going to cause a lot of distress for you. So some tips to manage your distress. Take a news break. I am like a broken record around everybody. Stop scrolling.
Yeah.
No, but that's the world now. No, stop scrolling.
Yeah.
Get off. You don't need to see the same thing reposted over and over and over.
Yeah.
Nobody needs that. Nobody needs to be re-traumatized with the same photo over and over and over and over again. Stop. Take a break. Watching endless replays of footage from fires can make your stress even greater.
100%.
So although you really want to keep informed, especially if you have loved ones affected by disasters, take a break from watching the news, period.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, we all know it is no secret. I do not think that corporate news is news. I don't think that any of that corporate news is news. I don't think they're news. I just don't think they're news. Or social media is news. So find your independent journalists, like I always say, your historians, your helpers, the FEMA people who are actually giving you the updates on what's going on, and then let it go.
Yeah.
But don't get into like the back and forth and the nonsense and the this and the ugly and the stop.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Stop. Right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Don't do that. Be kind to yourself. Some feelings when witnessing a disaster may be difficult for you to accept, right? Especially those fires.
Yeah.
Because that's scary.
It is. It's so crazy how like something, and people have their theories about how it happened, but like something like just embers.
Yeah.
Like having the wind just pick it up and literally could just start a blaze.
Right.
For somewhere else, and it's like it just goes.
The vulnerability of it, and then taxing the ability of. They have the most elite firefighters in that area of the country, in California, in that area. They sent in the elite firefighters from Canada and from Mexico.
Got people coming from everywhere,
and it's not that these guys don't know what they're doing. These are the best of the best of the best. Yeah, and they are struggling.
That tells
because it is unprecedented.
It's nature.
Yeah.
Nature's no joke.
Like, come on, so, and people, they are probably also vicariously traumatized and feeling all kinds of things and seeing all kinds of things. So we just need to send them our love and support.
sure,
and
absolutely.
Just shh.
Yeah.
Like I always say, just shush.
Yeah.
Just be quiet, okay?
Yeah.
All right. So you may feel relief that the disaster did not touch you, or you may feel guilt that you were left untouched when so many other people are affected. Both feelings are common, also normal. Don't give yourself a hard time about that. Be kind to yourself. Some of these feelings are what they are, and they just need to process. They'll process out. And as things get better, then it should lift, you know?
Yeah.
Keep things in perspective. Although a disaster often is horrifying, remember to focus that there are things that are good in life. You know, there are really a lot of things that are good in life. For example, the ceasefire that they just announced in Gaza and I mean, I don't know much about it, right?
Right. Yeah.
But the idea that that's even like a potential thing.
Yeah. Hopefully it's, and of course, as of this recording, there's been a little
scuffle
regarding that. Hopefully it gets, by the time this comes out, hopefully it gets resolved.
Yeah. You know, but it's a start, which is how these things normally operate.
Yeah.
Right? You start, you go backwards, you go forward, you go back, you go. And when you're talking about the people that you're dealing with that are in charge of these things, you know, it's to be expected.
Right.
But it is a potential good. And if you don't want to look towards the world to find something good, look in your own life to find something good. I am healthy and I am happy about that.
There you go. Yeah.
You know, I have a roof over my head. My pets are safe.
I'm
you know,
saying.
They're getting some extra love right now.
You know?
You know, so just keep a little perspective if you can. Find a productive way to help if you can. So there are a lot of organizations that are set up to provide financial and other aid to victims of natural disasters that are legitimate. Be careful not to be scammed. You know, contributing or volunteering can be a way to gain a sense of control over the event. And we talked about that last week. You know, and if you can't be out there helping, you can certainly find legitimate, you know, organizations that you can donate to.
Right.
Find the helpers, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
And those people will make sure that your money helps where it needs to go. So that's a way, something that you can do. If you can't do that and you're a person of faith, then you pray, you know, and you do what you can. And if you can get educated on the situation, you know, so that you can know what to take in when you read it, or someone says, you know what to take in, how to take it in, how not to take it on, do a little work around that. Anything is helpful.
Yeah.
Look for opportunities for self-discovery and recognize your strengths. People often learn something about themselves and may find that they've grown in some respect as a result of persevering through hardship. That's me. And I took my horn about that right now.
Yeah.
Because it took me 10 years. You know that whole story.
Yeah.
It took me 10 fucking years from 9/11. And then 10 plus years later, when I landed here, for a bunch of veterans that came back from Iraq and Afghanistan to finally stand up and say to me, and support groups I was running for them, that, you know, you too, my friend. Like, and good for you. Pat yourself on the back that 100%. You can even do this after. And I was like, no, not me. I can't. No, I can't. And they were like, shut up. like, you know, and finally I was like, you know, they're right. That it took a lot for me. I didn't have to fly out of a window and be set on fire during 9/11 to be grateful that I survived it, you know, and built a life after, even though there was a lot of denial and depression and stuff that came from it. But, you know, find your perseverance through hardship is a thing. It's a real thing. You got to surround yourself with those people that can see it, not the ones that are going to also be saying, no, everything's bad. No, you can't. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Many people who have experienced tragedy and adversity have reported later on better relationships and greater sense of personal strength. That's true. I see that a lot in my clients. Yeah. So some other recommendations, you know, for many people, using the tips mentioned above can be sufficient to get through a current crisis. But at times, sometimes an individual can get stuck. We've seen that, right? You know, and they have difficulty managing intense reactions. Sometimes it's triggering to them, right? Other times it's not. So find yourself a licensed mental health professional, like I always say, psychologist, psychiatrist, clinical counselor, licensed social worker, those kind of people, and let them help you a little bit in developing an appropriate strategy to move forward. There's no shame in that. There's no nothing in that. No judgment in that. It's normal. It's very normal. So it's important to get professional help if you feel that you're unable to function or perform basic activities of daily living once you sort of like experience something like that.
Yeah.
So I'll leave some resources and information on the show notes for everybody. So some gentle reminders, and this is just for the hurricane that happened, and I wrote these tips down, so I do want to honor them, because again, we're not talking specifically anymore about the wildfires or the hurricane that destroyed Ashville or anything. Now we're going to start getting into just general mental health and what we can do, what it means, and what happens, and what is considered a disaster and mental health.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give some hurricane mental health tips because, again, it just recently happened, and it's always good for people to know and have this. So some gentle reminders, right? Have a soothing playlist. You talked about this before, right? You still have yours.
Yes, I do. I love it. Faithful. I'm a faithful listener to it. I even have Sirius XM.
Yeah.
And they actually have like a lo-fi channel, a chill channel, to where it's just like smooth instrumentals. So like, I start my morning, I wake up early. I don't really play too much like music with like lyrics to it. I kind of like instrumentals, build up to it, and then I'm there. But I that gradual, gotta start slow.
Yeah, that's the playlist. So like in your case, you prepare, for families, you prepare a family playlist, right? Some fun uplifting videos, or maybe some meditation, soothing music, but make sure you're fully charged, your power banks, and even, if some people want to have their own personal instruments around,
Oh, yeah.
They play a drum, they play something that's very self-soothing.
For sure,
What to do. So do that. Have a wellness plan in place, And this is all obviously pre-hurricane, to take care of your mental health.
Yeah.
So if you have a wellness routine, find small ways that you stick to it indoors if you can regulate your nervous system. So J-Rock, we know, is like the exercise person. So if a hurricane happens and he can't get to his gym situation.
I got weights at the house. I got what I need.
You have your little corner set
I got
up.
my corner. I'm good.
And if you don't need the weights, you can use, in this case, they're saying use, canned vegetables.
Yeah.
If you need some weights, a quart of milk that's full, a jug of water, anything that you can use to kind of sort of do what you normally
do it. That's it.
Be prepared for that, so you're not stuck without that. If you need to do that, stay present, right?
Right.
So it's tempting to to party or doom scroll, right?
Oh yeah.
We talk about that.
Yep.
So that you don't feel anxious, you have to really be mindful not to overindulge in that. Don't overconsume all the stuff online. It's just, we're just not wired for that. We're not meant for that. That's not, we have normalized behavior that is not normal for human beings, right?
Right.
So, I know it's tempting, but try to take a break from that. Catch up with some friends, neglected housework, neglected car work. Like in my case, I never wash or clean my car anymore. So like somebody do like stuff like that. Protect your peace. I'm always talking about protecting, because that's my mantra. If you're not here to keep my peace, you have zero room in my world.
That's
zero. I don't care what you used to be, what you are. If it ain't peaceful, you're not happening. So that's just real important to me. But for other people, protecting their peace is not something they normally do.
Right.
Rest often. And, with the sunset, you reset your circadian rhythm. I'm that person. The sun goes up, I'm up. The sun goes down, I'm down.
That's it.
Avoid news sources that they tend to catastrophize their storytelling.
Of course. Yep.
Rely on public radio and NOAA, right? Because they're the ones that are just telling you, this is what's happening, that's what's happening, this is what's going on,
Yeah.
And they're not trying to get viewers and listeners and clicks and whatever with all the catastrophes like they're doing right now.
Right.
Do that to keep your nervous system regulated. Know your neighbors. Didn't I just say last week how lucky we are with my neighbors?
And you know what? And I was going to say this too, because I forgot to bring this up last week. That is back then, it was a normal thing, but and now it's not. Yeah, it's like that's the thing. Like a lot of people don't know their neighbors. Haven't walked over, introduced themselves.
Couldn't care less.
Yeah, they kind of
issues.
Yeah, they kind of just glance at them like, okay. So it's kind of like,
or they hear gossip and then that's it. They turn into the porch ladies. Like, oh
yeah. So I mean, that's you're super. Like,
I'm very, very lucky. We feel
to have that.
We feel almost like the universe said, here.
Yeah.
These guys are you. Because when I tell you that, it's just like, oh my God, this is such a little community we have. The neighbors to the left of us, they just look, it's like, first of all, the husband and I just love him and he loves me. I love her, she loves me. They love everybody. Everybody loves, the dogs love everybody. We're always over the fence talking. I feel like we've been neighbors forever.
Yeah.
But then they also don't get in my shit. Like they're not all in my shit. They're not gossipy. They're not any of those things.
Yeah.
But when stuff goes down, like it's storming, it's raining, is Jason okay? Is your dog okay? I'm going to oh my God, I love it. And then I did something last week. which I'm not ashamed. It's just, I did it.
Okay.
In my office at home, there was company over and I didn't feel like peopling. So I was in my office and I have a little sofa there and I have like this big bookcase with all my plants, my inside plants. And I wanted the sofa in a different direction so I can lay down and watch my TV. And instead of going and telling the tall guy to come help me, I'm like, I can do this. I am Miss Independent, you know.
All right. Yeah.
And I tried to move the bookcase and it got stuck, right? And I thought it was like stuck on the floor and I wasn't shoving it enough. And I shoved it so hard that I knocked the ceiling fan off and out. Like pieces of the ceiling came down. It was hanging down. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? This is horrible. I broke the room. And then I didn't tell them, but like I texted the neighbor and I was like, don't laugh, but here's a picture of what I just did. Do you know anybody that can come like fix this? Yeah. And they're like, girl, Craig is on his way over there right now. And I'm like, no, he doesn't have to come right now. He can come tomorrow, but he doesn't. But like, that's an example of, how long do you have to wait for like your person to come and help? You know what I'm saying? And then pay. This guy literally was watching a movie with his wife and was like, I'm coming. And I'm like, no, don't come. I just was panicking and needed to know. So next morning, Sunday morning, he was there. Yeah. Fixed it. Spent hour. He was just in there in the attic and everything. And now today I can turn my fan on. My light works. You can't tell I almost broke it. It came off the ceiling. Yeah. Oh my God. It was a mess. But that's an example of know your neighbors. You don't need to be in their business. You don't need to, but when you're just a good person and you click and, you know, the neighbor to the right is the same way. We're having package issues. Like packages just
go to one address. Who knows? Yeah.
So we're like texting back and forth. You got the package? I haven't got the package. I think she has a package. Oh, I saw the package. Like it's just like this. Let's chit chat about that. The guy across the street, I mean, he's another one. When it rains, he's always over helping us. You know, he digs in the ground to make sure the water goes in the other.
That's awesome.
I just feel like God blessed us.
Yeah, that's a rarity right there.
Right?
Like, oh my gosh.
They bring us food.
Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They bring us food. When our car, Alexia's car, something happened to it, they were there fixing that. My car, something happened to it, they were there and they fixed that. They sent somebody over. Man. We are blessed. Blessed. So like, I know that not everybody can have that. And I know, like you said, that's just not the norm anymore.
That's not the norm anymore. Like I saw this one comedian tell this joke and it's so funny, but it's so kind of sad. It's like, remember when back in the day, you used to have company, you get excited when someone knocks on the door and rings the doorbell. Now, let somebody come to your house and you don't know they coming. You're like, what's going on? Yeah, like, get away from here. So
who do they want?
Yeah, so it's kind of like, that just, wow. Like,
we have that. We have that. We're blessed. And I love it because nobody abuses that. Right. So far, so far. Yeah. Nobody. And I think that they're so grateful for us too, because I think the house has like a history of, it was great for a while and then they had like random people in and out of it and all that. So I think that they got, felt some kind of way about who's going to move in there. And then when they found out that it's us and they just love us. Yeah. We love them and
that's awesome.
Everybody eats. So I'm blessed. So if anybody has that, even with one person, you know, keep that person in mind, work together, decide things together, because that's what we do when shit happens in my neighborhood. We know who our people are there.
Cool.
So do that. Everybody keeps each other safe. If they see somebody walking, like I saw somebody walking in the yard, I let them know. They say, no, that's the AC guy fixing it. Like everybody's looking out for each other's place and dog and everything, so I love it. All right. And then detach and reset. So if something is damaged, it can be replaced. Don't risk your life to save things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What's that?
No, you know what? And I had to tell people this too. Like, so at my couple of jobs, but one of my jobs that I go to daily, my day job, it was always a rule. It's kind of like, look, hey, if something falls or if something is falling, let it fall. Like,
don't try to stop it.
We can replace that. We can't replace you. So,
that's great that they think that way. Yeah. So, I mean, and I know people have like, I'm attached. I have my mom and my dad's urn in my office and the little altar and all that. And like, I know I would be panicking, wanting to get that and trying to get that and my animals and, certain little things that
for sure
are treasures.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm not going to go running for my Rolex watch. I don't have a Rolex watch, but I'm saying if I did,
right.
I wouldn't be going for that. I wouldn't be going for like the $200 pants that we're always talking about. Like, I'm not saying that I'm not judging that you have those things. I'm just saying don't risk your life for it. Don't risk your life for it, no matter how hard you ever worked for it. Your life is more important. Your health and safety is better.
Right.
Remind your loved ones that, that their peace of mind is the most precious asset.
There you
How
go.
important is that, man?
Very, very.
And how many people do that anymore? It's almost like they get off thinking about your peace of mind being disrupted and being like you being all out of peace or something. Like they get a kick out of that. You know those people?
Yes,
like
I do.
They just want to just get something out of watching you be in disarray, or you be heartsick, or you be angry, or you be upset.
It's like watching reality TV.
Yes,
that's
like
all.
Reality
TV. People like trash TV.
I don't like people.
They love it.
I cannot deal.
They love a mess.
I know. I am messy. Don't be coming over here. And I don't like unkind people. Like there's one thing about there are some people that say, I just tell it like it is, and that's why people. No, because you can tell it like it is and be honest without being mean and nasty and a fucking asshole.
Right.
You can be truthful and to the point and honest without being mean, knowing that you're hurting somebody.
Yeah.
And not caring about them. That's nonsense.
Right.
That's just you trying to make excuses for being antisocial, okay, or just a shitty human being.
Yeah.
Don't do that. That's not impressive. Doesn't impress anybody. So be truthful, be honest, and be forthright, but don't be mean. Don't treat people bad. So, but anyway, remind people that matter that their peace of mind is more important and the most precious asset. If that's something that you can find yourself healthy enough to do for other people, do it, man. Do it for them and be honest and genuine about it, and stop trying to take that away from other people.
Right.
Even your enemies. I have some.
Yeah.
I don't wish them, I swear to God, I say that all the time. I don't wish them harm, but I'm not a freaking pushover either, and I'm not going to let you take shit from me that just like that either.
Yeah.
And I ain't going to let you mistreat me and then no consequences. Like, no. However, there's a way to do it and maintain your peace, and that they have their life and be happy and whatever. Do it. Just stay over there.
There you go. That's it.
All right. So what is disaster mental health? Disaster mental health really is the provision of mental health, substance abuse, and stress management services to disaster survivors and responders. So those are really fancy words of saying a disaster happens, you go in and you want to do crisis type of counseling. So you're not going to go there and try to do psychoanalysis. You're not going to try to do CBT. You're not going to say, don't worry, in 6 months. No, you need to know that right now they're safe. This is what you need to have them understand. You just went through a disaster. Maybe you're dissociating. Maybe you're in shock, but we need to get you safe. We need to get you dry. We need to get you in a place where you're not, subjected to the fire, for example, or to the whatever. We need to get you out of here. Like, we need to get you stuff that you need. What do you need? Do you need your medicine? Do you you do that kind of, you provide a sense of safety.
Right.
And that they're not alone to them so that they can stabilize.
Right.
But you're not in there doing therapy and trying to be all that.
No,
you're not doing that.
No.
So you're doing that. You try to assess, what's going on and what they're needing. Now, if someone who's really crashing and burning and needs something a lot more serious, then you need to do something different with them. But in general, most people, you just need to sort of help them feel a little bit more normal again. Like everything is a little stable. It's going to be okay. Or somebody's got this under control.
Right.
We're going to get through this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Substance abuse, that's a big one because people use that a lot, to try to manage what they're going through. So we have people who specialize in that go in. And then stress management services. I mean, you sort of need that. It is the most stressful thing.
Yeah.
So you want people who know what they're doing and they're not going to stress people out more.
Right.
Because they're all stressed out thinking they got it under control.
They got it, yeah.
Have you seen that? I know people like that. Do you know people like that?
I know about 4.
They think that they're helping, and
Yeah.
you're seriously just creating more fucking drama.
Basically.
You're histrionic, and now you got these people over here all histrionic. Like, no. All right, so that's what we're doing. And it's not just like the disaster mental health people, don't just do it to the victims of the disaster. We also go in and provide it for the first responders because, like I said earlier, there's the vicarious trauma. There's just the stressor of it. There's just the fear of their life. There's just all of that.
Yeah.
And they just have that tendency of, nothing's going to happen to me. I am Superman here. And, because they got to do that job. They can't be wimpy wimps, right? Going out there doing that.
Yeah.
So you got to watch them. And you have to look for signs for them to make sure that they're doing the things that they need to do so that you're not taking them to the friggin' hospital, or that you're not taking them somewhere. And you try to help them sort of manage what they need to manage. You don't tell them what to do, but you sort of, they're supporting them in case they're having a little bit of a moment, you know?
Right.
Okay. So disaster mental health, that's what it is. So Mental health care is provided by licensed professionals who volunteer their time and talent during and after disasters. So like I said earlier, there's different ways to help with the disaster mental health, but you really need to be a trained licensed professional and be supervised if you don't have your full license. Because I think I had my provisional license, and so my supervisor had to be, somewhere around, whatever.
Yeah.
Or available for me to call if something happened.
Gotcha.
But yeah. So as much as anybody and everybody wants to go help, you can't just go do disaster mental health because, one day you took a class and they taught you what PTSD is, and now you can go do that. And that's not how it works.
Got it.
All right. So it's based on the principles of preventative medicine. And what that really is it's a paradigm shift. So before, relief-centered post-disaster management used to be, let's wait till it happens and then we figure it all out, like it is.
Okay.
And now it's like, it's more holistic. It's multidimensional. They integrated like the community approach to it. They promote health about it so that you're prepared for it. Disaster prevention is a big one, and then preparedness. And we have whole agencies that are disaster preparedness. That's their job. The state emergency, what is it? Disaster emergency something, I forget what it's called, but it's the state agency that does preparedness for disasters. So they prepare before it, and then when it happens, they kind of get deployed and go do their things, and then they work with all of the other city or state officials in coordinating all of it. So you're not in there by yourself doing it. So it's like this whole pre-planning, and they get trained all year round. They get it's a lot of different people doing this work before, during, and after.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So experiencing a natural disaster or other emergency can really be intensely stressful. We already know that, right? So even when the immediate danger has passed, the impact can still be felt. We all know that.
Yeah.
Right?
Big time.
We've been there. So people may feel grief or anger over the damage or loss. We see that when people, like, your whole house goes on fire.
Yeah.
And then people get mad. They don't get mad at them, but they try their best and they say, don't worry, it's just don't say that to a person who's watching their house burn down.
Right.
I know it's our immediate knee-jerk reaction to say, don't worry, at least you survived. And there's just things in that moment, they don't see that.
Right. No.
In that moment, they're feeling absolutely 100% destroyed. That they're not going to get to that point where, oh my God, I'm glad it was just my house and me and the kids are safe. They're not really going to fully be able to take that in until after they're done melting down about the fact that my house just burnt down. My house, my person just got killed in this flood or whatever. Like, don't say that. Just let people know in the beginning, when they're right there and they're experiencing it in the moment, just let them know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're going through this. You're not alone. I am here. We're going to get through this. But let them feel their feelings and don't try to tell them, don't worry. Things are just things.
Yeah.
That's for later. Do that right away.
Yeah.
Because people are going to feel grief. They're going to feel anger over the damage. Let them. Fear of hopelessness is a big one when thinking about rebuilding their lives. My God. Nobody even likes to move across the street because they don't want to.
I'm telling you, man, I got to pick up all this stuff up and move across the street, man. I'm like, oh my God.
Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah.
What do you mean I have to change my clothes to go to the street?
Mom.
Nobody wants to do that. So much less start from ground zero with nothing.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a big major shift. So, give people a space. They're feeling overwhelmed. They're taking those first steps towards recovery. And, it's easier when you have a little bit of support and it's little by little baby steps. Now, other people just innately are able to get on their feet right away, and do and go and whatever. That's not the norm, but that they do exist. There are people like that.
Yeah.
And then there are people who suck at emergencies. They don't know how to dial 911. They don't know how to react. They don't know. It's just those people. So you have to watch them, take care of them, and whatever them, right?
Right.
Like them. But then there are the other people who really jump to their feet right away and know what to do. I don't know if I ever told you the story. Like I know my brothers were those people. It became crystal clear one day after 9/11, and I had come here to visit or something. I don't even remember what, but I remember I was like in this really bad place, but nobody really knew because I didn't talk about it. But I came, I was hanging out with the family, and I was going through a thing, and they were both happened to be at a little house that my mom and dad bought, and I was staying with them. And they both happened to be there, and we were on the porch. They probably don't even remember this. And they were on the porch. The three of us were on the porch, and we were just kind of chit-chatting about hardly the three of us together. It only happened when I came to town, right?
Okay.
so we were there and we were hanging out, and they were talking, and it felt like they were paying attention. Like it literally felt like they were looking at me and listening to me because I was about to open up, like say something. I was like, well, they're both here. I might as well tell them. And like it was gonna come out, and all of a sudden, like choof, they both took off. And when I mean they took off, I mean they just took off running in the same direction, the both of them. The both of them just at the same time, in the same moment, something happened, they ran. I didn't see whatever the hell that thing was. I didn't know. And then I was in my own, fields or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think even if I wasn't, I may not have noticed that. And I was like, what the fuck? Where did they go? What's going on? The both of them ran. I don't even know. They went down the road and they turned the corner. And then I was like, whoa. And then I walked over there to see what could it be that they, it was so odd. And when I saw it, it was like a man had driven into a ditch.
Oh,
so they were
wow.
like, he was driving down like a regular road street in a neighborhood. And I guess they, in the corner of their eye or something, because, they're both first responders and one was military and the other one's a cop and whatever. And so I guess, the training and the, I think just innately. But the minute that signal came in, someone's in trouble. I gotta go.
They just go.
They both ran together. They both booked together.
Yeah.
And by the time I trotted over there, I think it was like, I don't remember if it was an elderly man or a man, but something happened and he just kind of like drove into the ditch. So they saw the car go off the road, go into the ditch, and that was the emergency. And they went immediately into helper's mode.
Yeah.
Like immediately, didn't even bat an eye. Would that be me or you? Probably, I don't know, not me. I don't know if you would do that. But I wouldn't have even noticed it. Like I would have probably been talking and then been like, oh man, is that a car?
Yeah,
that looks like a car. But they didn't. So you have those people that are either trained or have it in them and can do it, right?
Right.
I'm not, I'm kind of that person. Something happens, I do it, it needs to get done. Then when it's done and over with, I crash. I do crash. But then there are other people that just get so flustered and so don't know, and you have to help them. And there's nothing wrong with those guys either. I'm just saying, we're all there.
Right.
And we have to be careful that we're all there and looking out for.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So getting basic needs first, right? Immediately after the disaster. Food, water, shelter, safety of self and loved ones, that kind of thing. That's what we want to focus on. That's the most important thing to avoid traumatic injury. So traumatic injury is like this big buzzword now online that everybody wants to talk about. Everybody is an expert at PTSD, CPTSD, trauma-based, trauma-informed. Like everybody uses our buzzwords now online. I don't know if that's good or bad. But I have my moments about that. People do the same thing like we talked about the other day with narcissism. They see 10 videos and they think that, okay, I got everything. They don't even know what goes on. And just with a lot of terms, it's psychobabble. But I feel like when the disasters are going on, you really don't need to do all of that. You just need to get their basic needs taken care of. So if you know somebody needs medicine and they don't have their medicine with you, then you want to help them do that. If you know somebody doesn't have food, water, shelter, all the things that we mentioned, let them feel safe. If they don't have a place to stay, let them know that there's a place that they can go to. All of that. That's more important than trying to figure out if they're going to get trauma.
Right.
Most people don't get trauma if they get disaster mental health in place first.
Okay.
Like a lot of them really, it doesn't develop really. And I'll explain that a little bit later. It can, but it's not like, it's not a given that just because you just went through this whole horrible hurricane thing, now you have a brain injury, you have PTSD, you have anything like that. Like that's not a given that you're going to get it.
Okay.
And it really depends a lot on what's happening during and after the event. So that's the most important thing. Basic physical safety is what they need in the first 12 hours. And that's what the studies show. Like this is a scientific tidbit. The studies show that it has to be within the first 12 hours. And if the basic physical safety is attended to immediately, and all of those other things I just mentioned too, within the first 12 hours, then onset of the traumatic injury will lessen. It'll lessen. It'll be less likely to happen. So the longer that the help is delayed, the more likely the effects will set in.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So stressors in 6 months, already worn down. And basically what that means is, I'm not really going to get into all of that because that just gets into the sort of complicated stuff. So what is trauma? We'll talk about that. Trauma is when something happens that leaves us feeling unsafe. That is the basic fundamental definition of trauma. So if I'm sitting in here and some strange man comes in here and he's behaving in a way that's making me feel unsafe. And all of my alerts go up, and I have to start acting and feeling and thinking, and then my central nervous system gets out of order and all that. And he maybe says a few things that make me feel I'm not safe with this man. He could rape me. He could, and he's not doing anything to make me believe he wouldn't, like he's literally doing things that are giving me that impression on purpose.
I see.
So that is a traumatizing situation. And I actually went through that in Panama when I was in the Air Force, and I had to go, speaking of the Panama Canal, and I was out there with a friend of mine from New York, and we were in the Air Force together, and we were out there, and we almost got abducted off the streets, but we were in uniform.
Okay.
And of course, she's from Brooklyn, I'm from the Bronx, and all that. So these guys and they were very friendly, very whatever, but they were doing everything within their power to try to talk us to get into that damn car. And they were like, they do that thing that they do where they surround you. So there's one here, one there, one there. And we just had the gift of gab. We just had the New York gift of gab. And we just kept talking, and we just kept mentioning our commanders, and our commanders need to know where we're going, and we're going to call our commanders. And we just need to go to the base first, and then we'll go with you. And that's okay. We double talked our way out of that. But it was one hell of a fucking experience. It was traumatizing because those men traumatized the fuck out of us. And eventually we scared them because they started to recognize that it's military related. We're military. We're not just like Joe Schmo girls tourists here. Like we're here for a reason. And then we ended up having to go to the police station and try to identify. I mean, it was just like this whole rigmarole.
Yeah.
But that's a traumatizing event. But because we saw it and were able to get immediate attention to that, it didn't cause like any sort of permanent damage. We felt kind of proud about the way.
Yeah, for sure.
But really, at the end of the day, trauma is when something happens that leaves you feeling unsafe. Period. Yeah. So what is traumatic injury? Traumatic injury, and knowing this is important because this is where disaster mental health matters. This is what they try to avoid, they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Traumatic injury happens when you never really gain your sense of personal power and safety, and it starts to affect your autonomic nervous system. So that's part of your nervous system that's responsible for your control, your bodily functions. It's not consciously directed, so you're not sitting here saying, I'm going to do this and this is going to keep me safe. Like when that's out of your control and you can't feel like you're controlling it, and like your breathing, your heartbeat, your digestive processes, your stress responses, all of that is when you start to look like in these situations as a disaster mental health provider, you start looking for signs of PTSD, CPTSD, or cumulative PTSD, like any form of any of those PTSDs, which are all different. So that is the traumatic injury. And then that's how it starts to present itself. So I'm not going to explain what all of these different kinds of PTSD, CPTSD, cumulative, all of that, because they're all very specific. But in the show notes, it'll explain in detail what they all are, who can get them, how, what we do, what we don't do about it, and resources. I always like to do the resources. Yeah. All right. So the 6 R's in disaster work. This is sort of like a model that they follow. Readiness. That's the preparedness stuff that I was telling you about. So disaster mental health, disaster work in general begins before you have to go in there and provide the services of disaster mental health. So the readiness people, the preparedness people, the agencies, the professionals, the states, the cities, they all have their people prepared for that. And that's when you see when they declare an emergency or a hurricane is coming and they start telling you, these roads are going to be closed. Your sandbags are over here. These warming centers have opened, and if you need help with FEMA, that's all the preparedness people coming in and getting everything ready. Yeah. Then the response people are the people that are going to go into immediate action. So those are your first responders, pretty much. Your cops, your firefighters, your EMS, all of those first line responders. Those are the ones that do the response part, right? Yeah. So there's a readiness, they're getting everything ready for them. Then when they're ready, then the response guys go into action. Then the response guys go into action. Then the relief, which is the people who go in, to do the rescue work, right? So they want to see is it search and rescue? Is it just search and find people because we don't think they survived the avalanche or something else? Like they do all of that next, right? And they go in and they do that. Then it's the rehab stuff. Whereas the long-term remedial measures, right? So that's where you want your city to come in and start giving you the community resources that's required to get your road back online, to get your buildings back up, to get your school back in service, to get your all of your medical services back up, like that gas, food, like all of that. And then rehabilitation is the last R, and that's like your long-term remedial measures, and you always use your community service. mental health continues. Like, we're there in all of this, making sure all these people have it if they need it.
Right.
But during the last recovery, like the rehabilitation and then the recovery, that's really when we do a lot more of our disaster mental health stuff.
Okay.
So the last R is recovery, and that's when you start wanting and feeling like you're returning to some kind of normalcy, right? So normalcy for some people might just be, oh man, I have, I don't know, a tent in my backyard, but at least it's in my backyard.
Yeah.
And other people, it's, their house is just totally fine. They just need to get back to work, and they need to, it's different for different people.
Right.
But the recovery process is just returning to whatever your normalcy is. That's what you kind of want. And then the last one is resilience, right? You want to foster resilience. So you want everybody that just went through all of this to sort of gain resilience from it, right? And not lose it. And you want them to get strong about it, to understand how to use it in their favor, that this can be something, that can make them stronger, but that if it's not and you're not ready, that's okay.
Right.
You can do something about that.
Yeah.
All right. So that's kind of like the general disaster mental health world. It's much more complicated, and we can go on and on and on, but we're not going to do that. But I think the what are some of the key things that you think you took away? Taken away from that?
Well, no, I definitely took away just the readiness, the peace of mind. But one thing that you brought up that I'm definitely learning how to do more of is, like, especially if something happened tragic, like you were saying, like a house burned down. And I was one of those people that's like, oh, well, I mean, you're here though. Like, you're here, your kids, you are alive, you're good. We can replace that. And I'm like, what you're saying made so much sense, because, like, somebody might have spent years building this house.
They have to grieve that loss.
Yeah.
They have to accept that loss.
For sure.
Their identity is wrapped up in that. Their sense of safety is wrapped up in there. So no, they don't feel like, at least I'm alive. I might as well have died with my house.
Exactly. So it was just like, hearing you break that down made me think like, oh yeah, like I don't think I've knowingly done that, but I wouldn't be surprised if, like, I hit rewind on like maybe a couple years ago, like, oh damn, I did that.
And other people do it, and it's not because they're coming from a good place.
Right.
I mean, it's what other people do, so why wouldn't we think? But but we know that that's not generally the thing. And then the fact that the 12 hours after the thing happens is real important to take care of people. And, and it's that whole 10-year period between 9/11 and then when I finally, and it's because of that, because my idea, I told this to myself, but also people around me didn't know what to say, right? So they were all about, oh, we're so glad you're safe and we're so glad you're good and nothing happened to you. So like my internal mental message was, you don't have the right to feel scared and like you could have been blown up, or you could have this, or you could have that, or like you don't have the right to do that. That didn't happen to you. You didn't jump off of a building in New York City. So why does that? You're not up in like, so you can't. No. You're lucky. You're alive. And I internalized that. But what it ended up doing to me is not letting me really process that I could have gone down with that damn airplane that hit, the Pentagon. There I was. I smelled it. I smelled the flesh. It was not pretty. It was horrifying. It was like barely safe. But and then you get into DC and that plane is running around and you don't know where it's going. And is it going to the White House? Is it going over there? It was just unprecedented. So for me not to be able to identify myself as somebody who did survived that for a long time and what it said to me. And then where my house was, I owned a house that was like right down the street from the Pentagon, and you can smell everything. You can see everything. You can see the gaping hole. It was all very traumatizing, but I wasn't allowed to see it that way. I was just, you're just like that one person that you're fine, you're okay. So, and nobody did that on purpose at all.
Right.
But it did affect me. It took me 10 years to deal with the underlying depression, the underlying anxiety, some trauma related shit and everything else under the sun. So, all right. So, okay. What else did you get out of this, J-Rock? I'm testing you.
Oh, well,
what did you think was going to be there that isn't there?
I would say, well, honestly, just relearning or just learning period about like having to deal with or when you see the signs of, say, a trauma and then like identifying it a little bit. Yeah. And just knowing how to like kind of operate within that. And also too, like the R's that we went over, all the R's, it's like, man, like there's some that I kind of been doing that I didn't know, but like when you see it like verbally like that, I'm like, oh, okay, cool, that makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So just all of that, the peace of mind, the readiness, the recovery, the resilience.
Yeah.
It's
all of it.
All of it.
And
all
then
of it.
remember, like in my case, I had survivor's guilt. Like I had survivor's guilt for years and years and years and years, and I didn't know that that's what it was. Like I didn't know until the guys told me. Like, you just had survivor's guilt. But it took veterans surviving Iraq to tell me that's survivor's guilt, and it was very internalized. And what survivor's guilt is it's you feel guilty that you survived and other people didn't. That's really what it comes down to. Not everybody has it, not everybody gets it.
Right.
But it's something that happens and you feel it. Or like if you're in a car crash and your sibling, your boyfriend, your husband, somebody dies, you didn't, you're going to have a lot, maybe a lot of that, or your child passes away. Yeah. You're going to have, because you're going to wonder why them, not me. And it's a very deep, complicated psychological thing. So disaster mental health is very important to that. There's also another thing called psychological first aid, which is sort of like, people use them interchangeably, both terms, but I just want to clarify, psychological first aid, which the acronym for that is PFA, is really the initial disaster response intervention. So it promotes safety, it stabilizes survivors of disasters, and it connects individuals to help and resources. That kind of sounds a lot like disaster mental health, but disaster mental health is more about your immediate. It's the difference between having a traumatic injury or not. This is more about giving you the first aid so that part will sink in, right? So the purpose of it is to psychological first aid. The purpose of it is really to do a quick assessment for the immediate concerns and needs of an individual in the aftermath of the disaster, and not to provide on-site therapy. So I see you there, you're on the ground, your leg is messed up, you're panicking because you can't find your partner and all that. I'm not going to start administering therapy, during that. I'm going to do some psychological first aid, which is, dude, what's going on? What do you need? The disaster just happened. You're safe, like that kind of thing. And then the mental health sort of starts coming in. So, and it's interchangeable, not going to lie. Yeah. All right. So that's it. So how do you get trained for this? In the show notes, I have a whole lot of stuff, information about that for people who are either interested in that or wanting to figure out if they want to do that. It's very easy. The Red Cross is your best friend. If this is what you want to do, they are it. They are the ones that you want to call and talk to, and they're always looking for people. And, the training really involves clinical skills, like interpersonal communication, empathic listening, assessing level of risk. You should have a license to practice as a mental health. That's required if you're going to do that. But you can still do psychological first aid without that stuff. You just want to help the mental health people. So learn that. They'll train you. The Red Cross, CDC, the FEMA, they have training on this. You can do that. So we're gonna kind of cut it off there because we can just go on and on and on and on and on about this. But at the end of the day, I think it's just important to understand that it exists. There are trained people. Look to the helpers. Those are one of your number one helpers. Your first responders are your helpers. Yeah. Sometimes they need the help. Sometimes we need the help. We don't know. But our job is not to go in and make things worse. It's to kind of help people get through it, get better, and for them not to have a lifelong traumatic injury that's going to interfere with their relationships, their family, and the rest of their world. So I'm going to do that. So we are going to. I guess we're going to wrap it up now. And again, we're just going to send our love and our support out to LA. Yeah. Out to Ashville and anywhere else where people are suffering with this kind of stuff. We're going to pray for that. All the wars, really. Yeah. But whatever we can manage to to sort of do something about. And we're going to pray for everybody, in a few days, everything's going to change in America. So, take care of yourself and do what you need to do. Find your community, find your people. Stay off of the fucking news. Yes. Learn what you need to learn when you need to learn, and then support the people that can do something about it. There you go. Absolutely. The people that are on the ground doing work and doing something about it, those are the people that you want to support, and then you keep yourself safe with your family, your community, take care of your mental health. Don't get so wrapped up in all of it, and know that we will get through this. Absolutely. Everything, we've been through it. We will get through this, but we need to be vigilant, and be mindful of what we're doing. Stay safe, people, and take care of your mental health. All right. Good night. Thanks for listening to the X Podcast with me, Xiomara Sosa, clinical mental health counselor, licensed professional counselor here in South Carolina. We hope you enjoy our real conversations about all things related to mental health. You can check out our show notes for reference, resources, and other show-related information. If you found value in our conversation, we encourage you to join us weekly as we discuss different mental health topics. You can head over to the X Podcast website at www.studiotalkpodcast.net and send us a message from there, as well as sign up for our newsletter. Our email address is studiotalkmentalhealth@gmail.com. You can also subscribe to our podcast and leave us a rating and review at blueberry.com/studiotalkmentalhealth. And send us a text or call us at area code 843-695-9974. Please recommend our podcast to your friends, colleagues, family, and networks. Thanks for supporting us.